Chapter 6, the listening center. A listening center is not something that I usually had in my preschool classrooms, but it is really important to teach children how to listen and to be really intentional about how you do that. Just telling a child to listen doesn't really say anything to that child. And so giving them examples of what listening means is really important. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Understand the listening in the classroom, set up the listening center, determine why to have a listening center, help children develop phonological awareness. Read sound play books aloud, have children listen to audiobook CDs, have children play sound word games, help children listen to online storybooks, help dual language learners. What's your role? Pretend phoning to promote listening and using puppets to promote listening. So here's what you want to do. You want to make sure that you are listening and that children are learning how to listen. So how do you do that? You talk slowly with each child. You use simple sentences and good grammar. You have private conversations and you ask conversant questions. This all means you have valuable conversations and discussions with children. Conversations being when you're talking one-on-one, discussions being when you're in a larger group. This means you are talking to and listening to children, which, when you think about how a classroom works, we don't do enough of. There's a lot of telling children what to do. The amount of time that young or early childhood teachers spend in discussion or conversation with children is very, very small compared to the amount of time that they spend giving children instructions. What we want to be doing in early childhood is both, obviously, but we really want to focus on having those conversations and discussions with children where there's back and forth because of the language development part of it, right? Children are learning how to use language. The communication part of it, they're learning how to communicate to and with others. The physical part of it, you're learning how to form, words with your mouth. And then the social part of it, the social part of it is so important. If you can't have these conversations and discussions, express yourself, then it's hard to develop social relationships. So this is important. Listening with intent, listening carefully to what children say. Talk on pretend phones to talk to children, right? Oh, what did you say? I'm sorry. Making sure children hear what you say. Just because you say it doesn't mean they heard it. We all know that, right? Many times it takes 3 or 4 times when you're telling a child something for them to finally focus on and understand and work through what you're saying. Have children listen to recordings of books is really important, but it should not take the place completely of you reading books to children. There's a physical part of being actually read to by an actual person that cannot be replaced by listening to a recording. And then asking questions about the stories. Setting up the listening center, having a pretend TV studio. Fewer and fewer kids are watching television that's live anymore. So having that experience is a little different, I think. Handheld and tabletop recorders and players. Kids are fascinated with hearing their voices recorded. And you can just do that on your phone, right? Or on your computer. Let children record their own stories. You know what? It is totally okay to have a preschool classroom make up their own stories, draw the pictures, use PowerPoint or Google Slides, make a little video about it. Sometimes making a video is more interesting than making a book, right? Or create the book and then have the kids read it so that they have both versions of it. That's a great way to show also to parents what you're doing at home. If you put it, you can put it on private YouTube, only they can see, you know. Why should you have a listening center? So that you are intentionally teaching about listening, right? And listening is important in for following directions, for developing relationships. It's also important for hearing language used, hearing words and sounds used, and that's the development of phonological awareness. Phonological awareness is the sounds of words. So recognizing rhymes, alliteration. Alliteration is when the big brown bear bought a beautiful bonnet, that's alliteration. You're using the same sounds over and over again, and then playing with words. And the king of playing with words, we've said it before, is Dr. Seuss. If there wasn't a word for what he wanted, he just made up a word, or he made up a word to describe something that wasn't there. But using rich language, right? Children need lots and lots of different words and different sounds. Using the same words over and over is helpful because it reinforces, but they need to have new input all the time. Reading sound playbooks aloud. Anytime you read a book aloud to children, you should be using drama. You should be making it exciting. You should be making it interesting, right? Taking on character voices is really important. Children need to listen for the words in a story. There's a point where children don't really get that these are individual words, around 3-4 years old. They don't know, like, this is just talking. All of a sudden, it becomes clear that these are the words that are in the book, and it's important for you to help them understand that. If you're using CD players and headsets, help them use it. Making the listening center a playful place. Have children make funny responses to words that sound alike. Have listeners ring a bell, shake a rattle, click a clicker, or bang a drum when they hear one of these words. Have children be each of these words. If you're reading a book about farm animals, everybody makes the farm animal sounds. Engaging the children in the process of reading and listening and talking. Playing sound word games, watching how they respond, becoming word detectives. Right. So when you're having children do something on a computer, you want to make sure you have a print version of the story that they're reading on the computer so that they can play with it when they've turned off the computer. Dual language learners listen to online picture books. So dual language learners, again, are children who are not native English speakers. They're learning to speak English. They have a different home language. So they're practicing their English in the classroom. They're practicing listening to English on the computer. They may be repeating words again and again. Having an English speaker and a dual language learner together is super helpful for both. Interesting focus on using phones. So my kids would make phones out of whatever they thought looked like a phone, right? Calculators were always used as phones, blocks used as phones. So find all those old cell phones that you're not using, put them in your block center, your housekeeping center, and that helps kids. Putting a phone to your ear makes you talk, right? There aren't other symbols that we have that do that. So if you are a child and you put that phone up to your ear, you're going to start talking. Crazy, right? Also, have them talk about what they're talking about on the phone. You'll hear interesting things, right? Because you'll hear snippets of conversations that they've heard their parents having on phones. Puppets. A lot of early childhood people are super into puppets. I'm not as much. I think there are a lot of ways that you can teach stories, and puppets are just one way to do it. So there you go. That is your listening center.